It's been 5 very long years since we've had our last Transformers movie, which was the Bumblebee movie, but now we are finally back with Transformers Rise of the Beasts. I just saw it a few days ago, so now I'm going to be here to kind of give you my thoughts on what I think about it. Originally, I was going to film this review how I usually do, with me setting up a camera and then talking about it, but let's just say that didn't go so well. Come on, car, come on. And yeah, I'm gonna be, oh my god, a car. So I opted to do it this way instead. Also, for majority of this review, I won't be talking about spoilers, but I'll have a small section where I will be, but I'll make it very clear and obvious when I will, so I'll give you guys a time code so you can skip past it if you haven't seen the movie yet and don't want to get spoiled. So this review is coming from someone who actually likes most of the Transformers movies, and is also just a fan of the series in general. Despite their flaws, I really enjoyed the first 3 movies, and the 2007 movie is legitimately probably my favorite movie of all time. You know how you kind of randomly gain consciousness when you're around like 4 years old? I'm pretty sure I had that moment when watching the first Transformers movie when I was like 4. I genuinely could not believe what I was looking at because they look so real. I can't say the same for Transformers 4 or 5, however. Those movies are genuine war crimes against cinema. And when it comes to the Bumblebee movie, I've always been very lukewarm towards it. I don't dislike it, but I definitely don't love it or think it's the best Transformers movie like a lot of people do. But now we get to this movie, Rise of the Beasts, and what do I think of it? I can confidently say that I liked it. It's far from perfect and definitely has its flaws, but overall I still had a really good time with this movie. But going into the news and the release of this movie, I was definitely very worried for it, not gonna lie. Despite being born in 2002, I've actually seen the Beast Wars cartoon back in like 2011, 12-ish, whenever it was on Netflix, on the Wii. And then I rewatched it again earlier this year to just kind of refresh myself on it, and I gotta say, I think it still holds up pretty good to this day. Animation-wise, it definitely doesn't, but the story and characters are pretty well written, and I found myself invested the whole way through. So when it came to including him in this movie, I was very concerned due to Beast Wars and regular Transformers kind of being its own separate thing. Like, I'm aware they're in the same universe and all that with the whole time travel thing, but they never really were meant to cross over like they have been doing recently. Like, there's literally 2 Megatrons, and then there's Optimus Prime, and then Optimus Primal. Okay, now as a fan, I get it. But if you are not a hardcore fan, this is literally going to make your head spin. And also, the amount of factions they would have had to balance in this movie would have been insane. There would have been the Autobots, Decepticons, Maximals, Predacons, and then they were talking about this new faction in this movie called the Terrorcons as well. That's 5 different factions they would have had to balance in this movie. Not really a spoiler, but there are only the Autobots, Maximals, and Terrorcons in the film. Which means there are no Decepticons or Predacons in this movie, which honestly, looking at it, I think that was a pretty good call. Now, when it came to the Maximals in the movie, I definitely feel they were represented pretty well, but I also feel like we definitely didn't get enough of them. It wasn't as bad as, say, like the Dinobots in Age of Extinction, where they were literally only in it for 5 minutes, but you'd think a movie called Rise of the Beasts would feature them more than they did. I feel like we should have gotten a solo Beast Wars movie before they tried to tie them together with the normal Transformers like they did in this one. Anyways, Optimus Primal and airazor were the 2 most prominent in the film, and Ron Perlman and Michelle Yeoh did an excellent job voicing them. But Cheetor and Rhinox, on the other hand, what even happened here? Cheetor only has like 2 or 3 lines, and I could be crazy, but I don't think Rhinox said a single thing in this movie. Unironically, Rhinox reminded me a lot of Jolt from Revenge of the Fallen, where they're just kind of there for the ride and that's about it. I can easily say that Rhinox and Cheetor were my biggest disappointments with this movie, since they were pretty prominent characters in the original Beast Wars show, so it was very strange to see them get sidelined this hard. Now, when it came to the Autobots in this movie, we've got a pretty solid cast here. Optimus Prime was done pretty excellent here, and Peter Cullen absolutely crushed it as the role as always. He has a pretty nice character arc with him not really caring for the humans at first, but then he starts to appreciate them toward the end. Bumblebee was pretty cool too, although I will say I'm getting really sick of him talking through the radio. Mirage was a really fun and refreshing character to see, and Pete Davidson surprisingly did a really good job voicing him. I genuinely thought he was going to phone it in for this. He had real good chemistry with the human character Noah, and so I'm looking forward to seeing more of his character. RC was a nice supporting Autobot to the cast, but I was not expecting Liza Koshy to absolutely kill it as the character. She sounded perfect as her. I also grew to really like RC's design in this film as well. When they first showed her off in the trailer, I thought it looked a little uncanny, but not anymore. I think she looks great. Okay, now Wheeljack, I'm very mixed on. There was a lot of controversy around his design not looking a thing like he did in G1, and literally one movie ago, they gave us the perfect G1 design for him. So for them to completely throw that away and give us this brand new take on him is definitely very strange. Now, here's my take on it. I like this design, but I just don't really like it being Wheeljack. I feel that if they would have just made him Preceptor from G1, or even just give us a brand new character in general, I would have liked that a lot more, and I feel like a lot more people would have been on board with that. But ultimately, in the end, it doesn't really matter because Wheeljack barely does anything in this movie. He was quite literally the definition of a filler Autobot in this movie. You probably could have cut him from the entire movie and it wouldn't have changed the movie at all. Like, that's how little he mattered in it. He was still better than whatever they tried to do with him in Dark of the Moon, so that's definitely still a plus in my book. Oh, and Stratosphere was a nice cool addition to the movie as well. He reminded me a lot of Jetfire from Revenge of the Fallen. When it came to the Terracons, Scourge was definitely the highlight for me. Peter Dinklage sounded great as the character, and they did a pretty good job making him menacing whenever he was on screen. Reminded me a lot of Lockdown from Age of Extinction. Battletrap and Nightbird were cool, but I also feel like they were pretty underutilized. I definitely would have liked to see more of them and have more interaction between them in the film. We don't get to see much of him, but seeing Unicron done properly and not whatever they were trying to do in the last night was really nice to see, and so I'm excited to see what they do with him in the future as well. Now, the human characters were done surprisingly pretty well in this movie. Noah Diaz is our new main human protagonist in the film, and he's easily the best one we've gotten since Sam Witwicky. He has a good motivation for what he's doing to save his younger brother from the illness he has, and Anthony Ramos did an excellent job playing as him. I also want to mention how great of a child actor Dean Scott Vazquez is on playing Noah's younger brother Chris in this movie. I feel like not enough people are giving him the props he deserves because he did a phenomenal job in the movie, so I'm really looking forward to see more stuff from him in the future. Elena, who's played by Dominique Fishback, was easily the weakest human character for me. Dominique didn't do a bad job playing her at all, but the character was just there to spout lots of exposition, and she leads to a lot of conveniences that happens in the film's plot. Speaking of the movie's plot, there's not a lot to really talk about here. It is really as basic as it gets. Stop the Terracons from getting a thing or else the world will blow up. Now, I'm not asking for some complex, groundbreaking story from Transformers, but I am disappointed that we got yet another story that revolves around them getting some kind of MacGuffin. In the first movie, it was the Allspark. In the second one, it's the Matrix. And then in the third one, it's the Pillars. And then in the fourth one, it's the Seed. And then in the fifth one, it was like Merlin's staff. And now in this one, it's a transwarp key. I will definitely say for the next movies they do to give us some new structured story that doesn't involve a MacGuffin that our characters has to get in order to save the world. Stephen Caple Jr., who directed this movie, did a great job. There were a lot of great shots, and he's the sole reason why a lot of the characters were handled with such care here. He also did a great job directing the action scenes here too. It was very clear, but he also still contained elements of what made Michael Bay's action in his movies great. It kind of makes me mad how much I harped on the visual effects for not looking as good as the Michael Bay movies in my initial reaction video to the teaser trailer, because I'm happy to say they definitely polished it up nicely for the final cut of the film. The visual effects look incredible and the robots look just as good as they did in the Michael Bay movies. I'd say my favorite fight scene was the one that happens at the museum. I thought there was a lot of cool shots and moments that happened in that fight. I liked the Peru and final battle as well, but I feel that the trailers and TV spots definitely revealed way too much of it because there wasn't a lot of new scenes added to those fights that we haven't seen from a trailer. I feel like they struck a really good balance between Transformers and human screen time in this one. It didn't feel like I was waiting 40 minutes for a Transformer to show up and do something cool like I was with the Michael Bay movies. Once the main Autobot cast gets introduced in this one, they're pretty much in it for the rest of the movie, which was really nice. Although I will say I think the movie still did focus a bit too much on the human characters. Again, not as bad as the Michael Bay movies, but still a bit more than what I would have liked. I'll also say that I feel like the movie's a bit too short. I know this was definitely in response to all the criticism the old movies got for being too long, but for this movie, definitely could have benefited for being an extra like 15 to 20 minutes long to kind of flesh out certain plot points. I'd say the first act is pretty well paced, but act 2 and 3 is kind of speed running itself to finish in a timely manner. Alright, now I'm going to be getting into a few spoilers, so skip to this time code right here if you don't want to get spoiled. So yeah, here we go. I'll be honest with y'all, I'm not really feeling the whole G.I. Joe crossover thing. I know Transformers and G.I. Joe has crossed over before in like the comics and all that, but I've honestly just never cared for the franchise like ever. I saw that Rise of Cobra movie they made back in like 2009, and all I'm gonna say is if you thought Transformers 4 and 5 were bad, wait till you see this one. I remember watching G1 Transformer episodes, and then they'd play an episode from the 80s G.I. Joe show, and I'd immediately change the channel. Same thing with Transformers Prime on the Hub. Whenever they'd air a new episode of that, they'd also air the new episode for G.I. Joe Renegades right after, and I'd change the channel in world record time. I'm definitely not fully against G.I. Joe being a part of Transformers. It's just one of those things I have to see how it's going to be handled before I can fully judge it. Seeing Snake Eyes next to Optimus Prime might be pretty cool, so it really is one of those things where it's like only time will tell. I wasn't a fan of how many fake out deaths there were. Like Bumblebee dying was a huge eye roll because literally everyone knew he was going to come back. They even showed footage of him in the trailer that hasn't happened yet in the movie, so I don't even know why they even bothered killing him off for a little bit. Mirage's death was kind of strange to me because we literally see Scourge deal a final blow hit to him only for him to randomly wake back up and become Noah's power suit. I definitely feel like that scene could have been handled out a lot better and how it just played out. Also find it kind of weird how the Maximals don't transform until the very end and they just kind of choose to be in their beast modes the entire time. Like in the original show, there was a reason why they're in their beast modes because there's just too much raw energon on Earth at the time to be in their robot mode, so their beast modes help stabilize them. But in this one, there is really just no reason why they choose to be in their beast modes, and it's kind of disappointing because we don't even get to see Airazor's robot mode before she dies, so that was very disappointing. I absolutely loved when they played the Arrival to Earth theme from the original 2007 movie when Optimus and Primal were driving away from the collapsing portal. That genuinely almost made me tear up because it just took me back and reminded me why I love these movies so much. I will say Optimus Prime's speech in this movie is very forgettable though. It's almost like they forgot to make one for the movie, and then they just wrote one up in like a few minutes and tacked it on at the very end. But yeah, that should be it for all the spoiler stuff I wanted to talk about, which wasn't much. I just mainly wanted to talk about that one big thing they did reveal. But yeah, that pretty much sums up my thoughts for Transformers Rise of the Beast. I really enjoyed it, and I want to personally thank Stephen Caple Jr. for giving us a Transformers movie that clearly had a lot of heart and passion into it. I didn't want to get too in-depth in this review because I know I'll give it a proper deep dive later on down the line. If I had to give this movie a score, I'd say it's sitting at a comfortable 7 out of 10 for me. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. I definitely recommend it. If I had to rank it with the other ones, I'd say right now it's definitely better than 4, 5, and Bumblebee, but I for sure like 1 and 3 more. I think I like it more than Transformers 2, but I've also only seen Rise of the Beast once so far, so that could definitely change in the future. I know before when I reviewed The Last Night, when it came out, I ranked it above Revenge of the Fallen and Age of Extinction, so I don't know what I was on when I said that. I definitely don't agree with that anymore.
This movie, however, is bad, but it is not as bad as Age of Extinction or Revenge of the Fallen. So it goes 1, 3, this one, 5, The Last Night, Revenge of the Fallen, and then Age of Extinction.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you liked it, make sure you like and subscribe and comment what you thought about Transformers Rise of the Beast and what's your ranking of the Transformers. I'd really be interested to know what your list is. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.